This is Green Planet, Blue Planet podcast. I'm sitting here with Ray at Terra Booma, at the place you founded and co-created, and also your home, Ray. So welcome to Green Planet, Blue Planet.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an amazing journey last month to have with you. We go through a lot, no?
That's very true. We're recording this episode on the last day of my visit and stay here at Terra Booma, and it's been a few weeks actually. I hosted an event here with my partner Lohana. We brought a group here from all over the world. We met many friends here, and also just immersed with the indigenous people of the Huni, Kuin, and Kambeba.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good context or setup prop for you to share a bit about Terra Booma and the context. You know, I can share more about what brought me here, but the purpose seems to be a land calling, a regenerative calling, an indigenous calling also, and a place for people to learn and live together.
Yeah. I would say my journey here with Terra Booma is more than calling, is listening those callings. Because I realize that these callings come all the time, all the moments, every day to us in different ways. And here, in my humble experience with this land especially, I kind of come to an understanding it's more important to be able to listen those callings and how we're going to interpret those callings to our daily life to grow as a human being. And so here in this land became my biggest teacher on all levels. And the journey is kind of came out very organically. I had no intentions to come to Brazil, to live in the middle of Brazil while I wasn't speaking one word of Portuguese.
Right, because Ray is from Turkey originally. I should have said that in the beginning, but you're not Brazilian, yeah?
No, I'm not Brazilian. Again, I didn't have any intention to come to live in the middle of Brazil, especially I'm from Istanbul, and I grew up in Istanbul and usually like south part of Turkey, where I had touch with the Mediterranean Sea. So I would never imagine in my wildest dreams that I would just be 1,200 kilometers away from the closest sea. But here I am. And this place had a greater imagination about me, to put me here, to be the guardian of this place for a while. And yeah, so here I am.
And you've built an agroforest over the last 8 years, and different event venues and different connections to, you know, the town Alto Paraíso de Goiás, where we are.
Yeah.
But did it really start like that too? Do you feel like it called you like a listening, or is this really what it taught you over the last years being here?
No, this is it's a constant journey. It's like a one big ceremony that's just like revolving and opening and unfolding. So what happened here, even agroforest or retreat center or having ceremonies, none was planned. To just put you in a better perspective, I never planted anything in my life since I came to Brazil. I had a background.
Before you came to Brazil?
Before I came to Brazil, I never planned anything. I was pretty much an urban boy and living in Istanbul, having a tech company.
Huge city, right?
Almost 20 million people. Yeah. And I had a tech company where I'm one of the co-founders, which became one of the biggest, actually, e-commerce companies of Turkey. But in that journey, I realized that that's not what I want to do. And the whole story started with asking myself, who am I? In the middle of that journey of my journey as an entrepreneur. But then the moment that I started to ask that question, of who am I really, then my real journey started. and it still continues on to this day. And how I see it, it's about, as you said, it's about like callings and listening about listening of that callings, so it unfolds organically, and everything that's happening came to life in that perspective. So agroforest came to my life, which became one of my greatest spiritual master
teachers now,
about listening the language of the nature, about understanding the grammar of that language, about understanding the communication and everything, and that really enlightened my perspective in a different way. And I started to understand, okay, what that means, we are nature. What really that means, we are nature. And from there, you know, we like, you've been staying in the chalets for some time, and the idea wasn't, when I started to build them, the idea was like, yeah, we can call some friends, you know, let's just like build something very simple here, so they can come. And but then, like, the whole place has a different energy, and it talks to you and it says, no, I want to be this. So, you know, everything just like comes organically. As pandemic started, we had a different shift about agroforestry, about, okay, maybe we can really like focus on like creating more food for the town, because there were people who were really like having a hard time.
One of the cool stories here in Alto Paraíso, actually, as you know, I would say I arrived at the tail end of the pandemic this year, right? And so when the pandemic was rolling and people were staying at home and etc., Terra Booma was able to give more food to the neighbors. Basically, everybody who bought a basket gifted a free basket to who was in need, correct?
Yeah. I mean, see, that's the thing. Like, when we talk about community, right? When we talk about community, what that really means. And community means like, we do things together, in the sense of like, we take care of each other and we stay in commune with each other. So in that, we saw that in the local community here, there are many people who are depending on their daily work, and so they can buy their food. And suddenly there were no work. Suddenly everybody had to stay home. But these people, they had no income and no accumulated wealth. So they were depending on that daily money, and suddenly like that was gone.
Yeah.
And even here we had like, at that moment we had like 14 workers, 10 volunteers.
Wow.
And everybody was like, oh no, maybe like we should stay also home. And I said like, no, this is the time that we really like fly. Now
fly to provide.
Now it's our time to like, just like, we really focus on producing food. So what we did is like, we created, we quadrupled our food production for that time. And we created this campaign saying all the other people who had the possibility to buy this organic food from here, and they say like, we are doubling our price for one organic basket, but you are, as you buy this, you are providing a family who cannot have that conditions right now to buy.
Wow. So, what a great, like, super pragmatic example of how community happens, because you started listening years earlier to agroforestry as a teacher, and you know, you and a few families live at this land that is Terra Booma. And the chalets, for context, like, you know, arriving there feels like, we hosted an event there. I participated in one of your events there. It kind of feels like you're among friends. So your core intention might still be there, right? But it's also a fantastic event venue, actually.
Yeah, but as I said in the very, very beginning of this retreat, there is no customers here.
Mm-hmm.
We have guests and there is an exchange, yes. But it's not about, this place is not about how we can make money, but it's about like how we can exchange and expand our experiences together. Like I can, and that's why the exchange is there, because the exchange has to be there. Like in that basket example,
yes,
I cannot really like give for free, but I can provide something that other people can also be part of it, and together we create something greater. And that's the idea here in our retreats, in our events, how we treat people and how we see people.
Yeah, and that's also really felt when people arrive. I've noticed it in both myself in my group that I brought here and hosted for, as well as in the other group. There is like a reciprocity that seems to be part of the fabric, the way Terra Booma is created, but also this land has a calling to everyone. Like I can feel these different hubs that you've created, the agroforestry, the event space, and now we're talking about exchanging and the reciprocity of it, which brings me really to Impact Bank. I think it's another hub, so to speak, because when we use money in this empowering way you just shared, right, where you can't give something away for free, which actually makes quite a lot of sense because you're providing, so you're creating a baseline economy yourself. But if someone buys a fruit basket or a food basket and therefore provides for someone else, similar like with an event space, suddenly the empowerment of money becomes like a transformational tool.
Yeah. I mean, how I see it is like this. In all cases, and we can come to the Impact Bank, but it's here also for Booma, for agroforestry, or in any parts of life. There is one basic thing that we as humans need to remember again, because in our capitalistic and post-capitalistic mind and society, we forget that the nature itself is based on the law of abundance. And I mean, you want to prove of that, take a seed and plant it, and you will see that. And that's how it goes in the nature. And in our understanding of wealth, we put things totally in balance. So we had to accumulate to feel more secure. But then more accumulation creates more scarcity in somewhere else. And then you had to protect of what you accumulated from the other people who doesn't have. So this is the main problem, I think, that comes with the disconnection of the nature. Because the moment that we really connect with the nature and what it's there for, we will understand that the whole life has been here billions of years before us, and it's going to stay here billions of years after us, and it will always provide life. It will always provide life for everything around it. So it's based on the law of abundance. So now, when we take this and look at our culture, we're doing something exactly the opposite of how it is. So how we can really heal of these wounds? By connecting. By connecting people, by connecting us within self, and by connecting us with the nature. So you want to have a good business model? I think that's a great business model.
Following the principles of nature.
Yeah. Because just doing that, as an example, in agroforest, we are doing kind of like a nerd farming here. We have we're taking a piece of land and creating a model, totally experimental, by respecting the principles of the nature and how a forest functions in its core basic ways, and what's the relations, and understanding that and then adding your human intelligence by respecting the principles of nature.
Did you call it nerd farming?
Yes, the nerd farming, because it's all in Excel forms and it's there, and so we can like really see how much
you planted in year 2016, 2017. There's eucalyptus, there's coffee, there's banana, and then you can see like the turnout, or also the
everything. So we can see.
There's definitely a feeling of learning when you walk just through these different plots you all have created. You know, you can, when you see photos over time also, there's this similar learning in it. I saw a aerial footage of Terra Booma, and then I walked the same spot and I realized, wow, 3 years later, this is like meters tall eucalyptus and papaya tree and banana tree and coffee tree. And so it's quite a rich experience, actually, even just to walk the land and see what has been done.
Yeah. I mean, like, and beyond, like, okay, if we talk about beyond all the ethics, like, let's just put all the ethics and everything. If we shift our perspective, even like economically speaking, we come to a conclusion that we can make 50 times more money in total of 15 years. Because yes, in agroforest, you need to have a medium and longer period of time for the usage of the place and the land, and versus to a monoculture, soy or corn,
right,
which gives you the return in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months,
which is the incentive about that system and model, right?
Exactly.
It's like you have land and it turns into money within 6 to 12 months.
And the other incentive on that land, on that way of doing agriculture, is you don't need to be the part of the process, because there is a recipe. It's like making a cake. There's a recipe, right. You use that, and you don't need to be integrated. You don't need to be connected with the land. On the contrary, you are like so disconnected to the land that you can have the right to kill everything around it, right? And you earn X amount of money
right away, versus on agroforestry principles, you earn it a little bit more patience, but then 15 times, you said, over 15 years.
50 times more.
50 times more.
Like in let's say you earn 15x in agriculture in 15 years. Here you earn 15 times 50 in that same amount of year in 15 years.
In 15 years, if you take the patience of investing for the 15 years.
Because now you have also trees.
Yeah.
You know, that you can also cut.
You build up canopy, you create different...
And then you can cut. And there is no problem. Because when you cut in that way, a tree, underneath, there is other trees that are waiting for that tree to leave the system. The moment you take that tree out, which works economically also, would give you wealth, and it has an immense value, and you take the tree out, and it's going to be another party starting on the lower canopies of the forest. That's like, okay, it's our time now. And
that you freed up and put biomaterial back into. I love, Ray, that I asked you about Impact Bank and the new banking system, and you went straight to the principles of nature, the forest, and agroforestry. Because, you know, this came up in other episodes before. The banking system of the forest, if we look at the mycelium and the way the fungi kingdom, right, interacts with the flora and fauna kingdom, we could learn a lot about banking from trees, actually.
I like starting from the art to music to economy to banking to whatever we can really like learn, because it is there, and like it's just biomimicry, you know, like the moment like we do the biomimicry, it's just there, and we have this arrogance as humans, I think, that instead of learning what is there that has been proven that it's working for millions of years, we come to our own models disregarding that, and we believe that works. I mean, that can work, you know, that can bring you abundance for your individual. but at the same time, it has to bring a lot of other people around you down, because it's not about accumulating energy, which is syntropy. It's about stealing the energy from around you, so you can bring that wealth. But we can, this is like a one living organism that we are living in, and we are part of it. So you are making sick other parts of the body to bring more wealth here in some part of the body. Eventually, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, so at the core of my intention of starting this podcast and the quest of, these interviews with the green planet, blue planet idea in my own consciousness, it is all about the biosystem or the biology of life. It's like there's a code that as we become one with that code, we're one with all of it, and we create more abundance as being part of this abundant, not just philosophy, but as you said, principle of life itself. It seems quite obvious at a certain point, but since there is old systems and all the power of old systems that exist and power of old institutions that exist, it still feels like sometimes maybe even two different worlds, or bubbles that are created. True. Which I think is, I want to bring it back to Impact Bank. So exciting about all the DeFi topics, even any conversation about crypto and NFT that, can spin off of this, but bringing it back to banking itself. When we revolutionize banking, everything changes. Sure. Because that's how our current way of domination keeps being perpetuated. As long as I bring US dollars to Brazil, I have a very different level of access, which is not necessarily the only way life has to be.
No. And as you said, like, it's one of the most critical sectors in this whole, because it's a glue. Like what's happening right now, the whole society and how the economic system works and everything is based on trust. And right now we all believe that we have to trust, and because there is no other option actually. Like in my way of looking, before I was like, I really hate banks, man. Like it's just like so inhumane. So I was super pissed to how it functions. But I was using a bank, and I am still using a bank, obviously. So from that, I would never, ever imagine that I would enter and kind of like become part of a digital bank. One of the founders of a digital bank.
Because you had like a distaste for banks. Yet you also had, because of your past in the tech business, you had the privilege to think about banks in this way as well.
But you see,
you were not in the survival mode of that world.
No,
that enchained so many people. Yeah.
But like, that's the thing. I think the way of like, if we really want to change something, it's not about saying, like, fuck the system. Yeah. It's more
Good
about
place to start,
on the contrary, we can really say like, okay, this is how it functions, and this is how we can transform it. So to be able to transform it, we have to go in it and understand the principles from inside, how it works, and then like bring the other principles to meet it. And then instead of like bomb something down, you create something that can really be an inspiration all around. And Impact Bank is a living example of that.
Another project of yours and the crew here at Terra Booma, really, right? Because I'm so with you. I just had a smile at fuck the system is sometimes on a personal level of our emotional experience with this world, also a good place to start. However, then personal transformation, collective transformation, inspiration, right, is where to put our focus. So Impact Bank, if I understand it correctly, in short, it takes the banking fees it makes and reinvests it into local projects and NGOs and support for the ecosystem at large.
So it's based on, it's focused for now. The main focus is NGOs, because most of the NGOs, I'm not talking about the NGOs that's kind of like funded by big tech companies or big farm companies. I'm talking about NGOs that really like focus on the social projects and people.
And currently,
Like
because it's
people.
a Brazilian bank, it's also focused in Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, no.
Right now. Yeah.
But the idea is international, going international. Like we just started. So, but yeah, our focus is like first make these group of people who are really focusing on the people and communities. Like, okay, how we can serve you. Because especially here in Brazil, the banks are not even want to deal with these people because it's not lucrative.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
like, for example, marginalized communities like indigenous people or unbanked people that live in the poverty of, rural Brazil. Like, yeah, as you said, not lucrative to even offer them the service of banking, which where I grew up in Germany or in Canada or in Turkey probably is one of the most normal things, right?
Sure.
For a lot of people, this is hard to understand, but that is why the global South looks like the third world, is because people are not even offered the privilege or the access point of these infrastructures.
No, they don't even, so many people here in Brazil, they don't even have access to a simple bank account. They just don't open. They just don't give you the option to open a bank account. Because they check out the thing, it's like, no, you know what? It doesn't worth it. And what really, like, what's the cost of taking a whole forest down? In the Excel sheet, you can see, okay, some hours of a tractor work and that much of a gasoline and, a couple people to hire. And that's the cost in the Excel sheet, that you can see. But that's not the cost of to take down a forest. And the other cost that, unless we really don't understand what the real cost is, the calculation will always come wrong.
This is, at this point, I believe something that, many more people are speaking about, and is such a great statement you're just making, is certain costs like, a human life and the life of a tree, or the quality of life that is created through leaving ecosystems intact, are not accounted for, as you said, are not on the Excel sheet. And this, I believe, is our shared purpose as a human community at this point. I was thinking about asking you about purpose, but really we organically ended at this interesting part of the shared purpose. There is a collective purpose of coming into right relationship with this. And otherwise we will kill more people, kill more animals, kill the planet itself, and that is a unfortunate reality of the side product of our globalized culture that we have to acknowledge, I believe, in order to heal from it, in order to reconcile it, and then in order to build something new.
Yeah. And I think we have no other option. And you can see that could be our biggest curse, or at the same time, our solution to really remember who we are. Because we cannot build our future, as you said, our shared reality based on a lie. Because right now, as human society, our shared reality based on the biggest lie that it's a constant growth and constant economic growth by just like taking everything more and more and more and polluting the rivers, polluting the oceans, polluting the earth, polluting the air. Only in 150 years, with the damage that we created to the nature, which the nature, I have no problem. When I think about it, actually, the nature doesn't have a problem, because you know what? She's been here since almost the beginning of the time, and she will stay here. So it's going to be some short period of time that she will recover itself from what we created. It's
so interesting that you say this after having invested more than 8 years into agroforestry, where in regeneration and the regenerative agriculture, where you've seen it happen, right? Nature recovers very fast. It's not a myth, it's very real.
No, it's crazily real. It's like I am really surprising every day how real it is actually, even though I'm like talking to you, and then I see that when you plant a tree, you're not just planting a tree. If you understand the principles, you plant the water.
Exactly. And Scotch principle of planting water in the syntropic forest, right? And it's fascinating though, because it obviously doesn't not justify to destroy everything, but still coming into a real authentic relationship with how destructive a core part of this current globalized culture is. We have to face it. And it has to be transformed by mimicking the principles of nature. And it's actually already underway. Like if you ever have the privilege to come to Terra Booma and experience an event or something here, it is like you can live it here. You can feel it. This is a bubble in which these relationships are starting to happen for everyone who comes in and out here, no? And this can be, at some point, all of our human relationship. However, just like people have I believe, the right to learn to read and write, people need the right to be not unbanked, but to be literate in a way of the abundance and the fluidity of life's exchanges. Because if you're locked out, you don't really have another option. And then so this system that is based on destruction is also based on exclusivity and hierarchy, right? Which is not that there are no hierarchies in nature. There are quite a lot, even as you said, with the trees and the different canopy levels, literal hierarchy, but they are in an exchange. They are in a syntropic relationship. And rather than asking you about what do you think purpose is, I think Synthropia, also the name of your next collective business you're starting, a venue space here in Alto Paraíso. Synthropia is this purpose. Syntropic or synarchic collaboration it seems to be human superpower and our next level of unfolding purpose together.
Totally. And that even kind of breaks the word of hierarchy, because in the forest principle, there are other trees that stays on top of everything. That doesn't mean that they are the kings, because they are providing shades for the other trees that needs those shades. And underneath, there are other trees that needs even more shades than the other ones. So it's kind of like more than a hierarchy. It's more like you find your place in this mandala. Where is your place in this mandala? And then it doesn't matter how big or small you are, because in that mandala that you created, and if we can do it as human society, the moment you take one thing out, it will feel its missing point there in the mandala. And regardless of if we believe and if we don't, we are in this together. And we are always as a society, you know, they say it like as a chain, the chain is as strong as its weakest point. So
funny how we do say that, but we don't really like shape our economy around caring for that, right?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And but it is true. I mean, it's not about like I believe in that. No, a chain is as strong as its weakest point, and we are living in this together. So now people are kind of like waking up more and more in the sense of like, you know what, I want a better future for my kid, for my son, for my daughter. So I'm just gonna like make him more competitive, even for him to go to Harvard or Yale or whatever these universities, while the whole nature in front of us is degrading. So at this moment, what's the better option for your kid to have like totally disconnected with the whole society and your roots, and this disconnect with the nature, and become a great salesperson? Is this what we really want or what we need? Because so I born in 76, and in 80s there was this super hype of capitalism, and everybody was really liking it.
Going for it.
It's because
go get your 2 Beamers and the mortgage on the house.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And like, you know what?
Yeah.
I can look, and because I also come from a family like that, and I was like, yeah, why not? You know, there is lots of products and this and that.
It's one of the paradoxes within the principle of abundance, is because we actually all have the birthright of participating in abundance. If abundance takes the shape of capitalism, then of course we want to strive to be part of this, because it's our natural desire and birthright to be part of abundance. It's just a modulated form of abundance.
Yeah.
It's like hijacked, right?
So at that moment, in the 80s, you needed to be more aware to understand that that wouldn't work.
The consequences were not as visible as they are now.
No.
Yeah. Now with the world globalizing and the threat of everyone living like a North American, but we would die in our own sewage.
Yeah, but you see now it's more on the contrary. Now everybody knows, but nobody wants to know. That's
pre-pandemic. I believe that the mandates during the pandemic time have shown us that certain bodies of government and oligarchy and money pressure are not powers that we want to have rule over the people. And so we, the people, have to ultimately just come into responsibility to choose what we truly want. That might still take a while, but I think that that's fully rolling, you know?
Yeah. Man, again, like the moment now, especially after like really go deep with the agroforest, whenever I'm looking at this nature and human nature, I'm always like coming to these principles of forest, and that's always coming the same way. Like what takes over the moment you destroy the forest, what came over first is always the grass. And then bush, and then small trees, and then big trees in time. But like the recovery comes with the simplest form, which is the grass, which is the common people. Like,
wow,
we can really like become this carpet of healing this earth like this. But we need to come together.
Wow.
We need to come together.
What a powerful metaphoric picture you just drew there, yeah. The cycle of the way that nature, the regeneration of a plain or a deserted area happens. I also learned here, when you talk coming together, that if you ever do get the chance to learn at Terra Booma, the agroforestry was my favorite topic to nerd out on and understand the different relationships in the canopy synthropia, as we say said in this episode. Banana is actually a leaf. It's a grass.
It's a grass.
It's a very tall grass. So we're not just talking about like the short English lawn, but the different stages of that. And so when the banana comes back and gets cut, the water that it contributes back into the soil is what boosts everything else.
So there is that's exactly like, that's again like understanding our principles, understanding what we can contribute, and then sometimes we can use our human intelligence, connect with the nature, and then use banana not as a fruit tree, but as an irrigation system. So and there is many forms of creating a collective abundance like that, by using human intelligence. It's kind of like a peace farming, It's
you're cultivating peace, right? Which brings me to one of my questions, and I know your father. When I think about cultivating peace, I often think about the next generation. We already talked about generations a little bit in this episode. So if you were to change the education system, we don't have to talk about that it's pretty messed up and wrong in the sense how public indoctrination happens. But if you were to change it alone or with your Terra Booma team of experts, what would you do?
connect kids with the nature first.
Mm-hmm.
Like connect kids with their own nature. Because again, like when we talk about education, it's always coming to like this
Mm-hmm.
Like being human. In English, there is this word, human being. And we forgot the being part. We always focus on the human part. And in the being part, we experience that with the indigenous people here, with the sacred medicines. We really like entered, like left the human part and entered the being part.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the education that like the kids, the children need to take. You know, like remember, because they are there. When there is a, you know, when you,
kids
when
and animals hang out there until they become over intellectualized based on the conceptual reality that the old paradigm teaches them.
So you know what, basically, like what I would do, basically I would just get out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Get out of the way.
Like as an adult, like create a safe environment for them to experience what they're already experiencing with their environment that's alive. And so they can teach us. And you know, I don't think it will take thousands of years for us to make this transformation. If we allowed them in one generation, as Dalai Lama says, you know, like they say, if every child stays like doing meditation in the right way for one generation, the whole population changes. And that's true. And
it's beautiful that you bring the Dalai Lama example of the meditation, which would be his practice or his form of seeing that, right? And maybe the agroforestry or regenerative landscaping in that sense is another part of that as well, right? It's nature's principle number one, I heard you say. It's, thank you. So well said. It's really, really amazing. I want to right away go into the follow-up question because you're leaning into it already, you know. If you now were to stretch it longer, not just the education, but our dream for the next 7 generations, right? Like, what is your dream for the planet, for the generations that come after you, that you know is in your heart, you know, that the sacred medicine maybe even tells you about? Like, what is that dream for the next 7 generations that you have, Ray?
There should be more of this.
The birds flying by.
For them to experience. Because when I'm looking a general flow of where humanity is going, I'm a bit worried on that flow. You know, I'm like, so what? It's gonna be like digital bird sounds that they're gonna listen and they're not gonna see them anymore, or we're gonna create kind of like islands that inspire each one of us, that can bring more and that can exchange more. Because here in Booma, we created an island, and we're planting consciousness in our ways. We're not perfect. We're not people who got like enlightened people who come together and do things. No, we are like just people, regular people who kind of like wants to see how we can live together instead of complaining about what's not working. Okay, let's come together and do things what might work. And it's an experiment. We do things here. We don't after, you know, we don't like, oh no, we have to change this and now. But so for the 7 generation thing, I think we need to connect with the nature. That's for sure. And then we can listen and learn and stop of this arrogancy, and we can listen and learn from the forest, from the trees that's there. It's giving all the time, that has a amazing technology all the time, through mycorrhizas, through fungus system, through their exchange, through their economy. It's all there. It's all there. To their language. And so when I see that, I really see also that there are so many gifts that's given to us that we kind of get blind to see them or take it for granted. All these medicines that's in the nature. So we can start trusting the nature again and not seeing it as a commodity. We can start seeing the tribes that's being part of the forest for thousands of years and include them and start understanding their cosmology and how they see the world and why they didn't touch the forest, even though they are hunting, even though they are taking their water from the forest, even though they're living in there, so they're killing the monkeys and they're doing this, but it never ever come to a point that it's kind of degrading the forest. On the contrary, their presence there always created even more abundance. So there are a lot of things that we can learn around us, around our environments. And so for this, I really think that we should be the ones who inspires each other and then who protect. Like, we can trust again the feminine power. We should trust again the feminine power and really like let that feminine power to manifest itself. So maybe the moment that we integrate that, automatically we integrate our relationship to the nature. It will change. So yeah, I mean, what's like, we need to define, like redefine the very basics, things like education, things like economy, things like food. Female and male energies and how they react to each other. All these things. And I really believe that we can do that. It's about like, okay, we really need to bring more inspiration. Like,
in fact, as you said, you're already doing it, right? Like these, here the red thread is these islands of coherence in the world that are committing to this work, who are taking this not just serious, but on as a life expression and purpose to come into syntropic relationship with the land and the local place. So Terra Booma being one of those islands of coherence. If you were to, from your beautiful answer about the next 7 generations and the principles that we want to live forward, if you were to make a call out into the world right now as we're broadcasting this episode, right, as there are a lot of people actually that are already guests at Terra Booma, at the Terra Booma event space. You have such a massive impact already in Alto Paraíso to be continued and expanded with Synthropia. But if you were to make a call out into the world right now, what is like your prayer or your ask that you're casting?
Again, I think that's the thing. Like Osho, one time Osho said, like, there might be many dreams, and in that dreams, everybody can have a different dream, but there is only one recipe for all the dreams to become reality. Wake up. It shouldn't be so complicated. Like, for us to really like come to a conclusion, shouldn't be so complicated in the terms of at least saying it. Like, it should be like really like 1 or 2 words. And then the whole journey is like understanding what that really means. So my one sentence would be like, we should reconnect with our essence. We should reconnect with our roots. We should reconnect with our earth. We should reconnect the principles of the nature. And so what that means, okay, it's that simple. It's really that simple. But what that means, it's the mystery of life.
And like, it changes from person to person.
And
especially in these times, you talked about the 80s and the over capitalism for a minute there earlier. In the, it's 2022 this year. In our time, it also means we're paradoxical because we're weaning off. We're putting to bed the old culture, but we're still involved into it in certain degrees as we build these new islands of coherence. So it's personally different what the mystery of life has you do to reconnect with the abundance and the principle of regeneration.
So my biggest prayer for this land, and one of my biggest dream, is to have a mystery school here. And what that really means is going to show itself. But what we had here the last week was part of it, for sure.
The indigenous wisdom of Brazil.
Yeah, it's one way.
Embodied through the Honikuingas and the
It's one way.
Kambeba.
And you experience that, what that really means.
I experienced after having been at Booma for a few weeks and coming and going over months now, I experienced that this is an essential part that the land is calling for, because I'm from Germany, you are from Turkey, you're wearing a beautiful bracelet that says Gaia, and I'm wearing the crystals of the earth. We have maybe a connection to the whole planet, but the local culture, especially in Brazil, especially in Chapada Veadeiros, is still held and really, so to speak, also like brought by the indigenous people. Yeah, it's one element of the mystery schools. Wow. Well, your prayer is heard, Ray, and it will be broadcasted into the world. I'm so grateful that among all the things we had time to do over the last weeks and months here, we also had time to record a beautiful interview. So thank you so much for taking the time and for opening your doors. And, on a personal level, just thank you so much for saying yes to your transformation that you as a tech company owner in Istanbul at some point surrendered to, said yes to. Let the call of life bring you to a place where, even though you're one of the co-founders, you're not really in control, you're not really in charge. But nature itself is, as I see your wisdom, brother, in the time we spent together, nature itself is speaking through you into the world.
So thank you, and thanks for surrounding yourself to Booma vibe here that like pulls you in. And
I'm so grateful for that. Brazil is a great backdrop for me. Yeah.
Thank you. And one last thing about that like being indigenous. So I hope we can all understand that we are native to this planet, because that comes with the disconnection for ages.
Here.
That we forget our tribe, but okay, so we are one tribe that is. We're the descendants of this like lost tribe, and so now from that behind, we can create something all together as one tribe. That's my dream. That's my prayer. That's what I inspire of. And so for that, I hope there would be many places, not like Booma, because each has a different color. As one time I asked my daughter of her favorite color, and she said rainbow.
All the colors of the rainbow tribe.
So yeah, I think that's my prayer, that of that reconnection of our nativeness.
Of our nativeness. Yeah, that is, that is a very deep chapter, I believe, in the book of both reconciliation with the old cultures and also the way forward. So, wow, to be continued, Ray. Maybe we'll record another episode at my next visit in Brazil. For this time, I'm just really grateful.
Yeah.
Obrigado.
Ouch.